Last week's municipal elections in Venezuela were a vote for the Maduro government. Despite following weeks of economic turmoil, he had his country's majority support. And to discuss the results, we're joined by Mark Weisbrot, the co-director of the Center for Economic and Policy Research here in Washington, D.C. He is also an expert on economic policy in Latin America. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
What is the headline from these election results?
Well, I think they came out a lot better for the government than people were saying. In fact, it was definitely a victory for the government.
Why hasn't the opposition, who coined this a referendum, why haven't they found the right strategy to win?
You know, a lot of people look at it in terms of the whole period of Chavismo, you know, and if you look at the last decade, which is really, or 11 years since the government got control over the oil industry, the economy's done pretty well, you know, very well actually, in terms of income growth, employment, unemployment is half what it was before Chavez was elected. The poverty was reduced by more than half, extreme poverty by more than 70%. And last year, the poverty rate actually dropped by 19 or 20%, which was the largest decline in the whole region. That was just, those figures were just released last week by the UN Economic Commission on Latin America. And it was one of the largest drops in poverty in the world. So even though the last 9 months or so have been rough, I think people probably voted on the basis of the overall long-term performance.
You recently wrote, "Long-awaited apocalypse not likely in Venezuela." Why is that the case?
Well, because the problems are fixable. You know, again, if it were some huge structural problem in the economy, or there was a balance of payments crisis or something like that, I would be more pessimistic. But in fact, this is really the inflation comes from the exchange rate regime. They had 2 years of economic recovery from the middle of 2010 to the middle of 2012, where the inflation actually fell when the economy was growing very fast and accelerating. And that's part of why the poverty came down last year. So they are capable of bringing inflation under control. I think they haven't done it for various reasons in the last 9 months or so, but I think they will.
How much inevitability is there in Venezuela, considering the current economic picture? Do you think the country would still be in the same situation if former President Hugo Chavez was still alive?
I think it might be similar. I mean, he might have made different decisions on the, again, I think it's mostly the exchange rate regime that's the problem. But, you know, fundamentally, this is a country with, you know, $94 billion of oil revenue. Their peak imports last year were like 60 billion. So this isn't a country that's going to run out of dollars. And if they don't run out of dollars, then the rest is just, you know, having reasonable macroeconomic policies, and the economy will grow. They have other long-term things they have to take care of. You know, they want to diversify away from oil. They have infrastructure they have to build. They need more of a development strategy. These are things that all of Latin America has, most of those same problems.
Mark Weisbrot, we appreciate your time and your insight. Thank you so much for joining us here on this show.